Taking the tractor up here to see if I can get it around the woods before I hook onto a trailer. And I see a bunch of trees that need to come down. You know, they're leaners, they'll never be timber. But they will be good firewood, like those right in there. I don't know if you can see them. Those are 2 maples. You know, there's about 8 to 10 inches maybe. This over here wasn't bad. It was about 6 to 8 inches. But I can get up in here now. I don't know if the camera shows it well, but we're on top of a drift. It gets a little light right here, but then it gets right into this stuff here where you jump up a couple of feet. And the rest of the way up the road, I'm going to be on top of between 1 foot and 2 foot of hard packs snow. The tractor's light enough, it doesn't punch a hole through. Now we come to where I plowed it out last week. It's melted down quite a bit, but that's where some of the real heavy drifting was. It was literally straight across from the top of the bank across to where the other side was. Anyway, get some sauce and get back in the woods while I have some time. Well, loaded up and ready to go. Some chaps on, not interested in going to the hospital today. Fuel oil, my backpack, some tools and stuff. I'm just going to take Hudsel build and 455. It's really not fair to compare that to my Stalker build for 2 reasons. One is I got a Forester bar on it that has a semi-chisel chain. I don't know what it is about them, but the rakers, you got to take them down quite a bit to make that stuff cut, and I haven't had time to do it. So the stock chain, being a full chisel Oregon, it's going to cut a lot better than that saw anyway, so a comparison's not even fair. That also combined with the fact I've got this set for about 12.5, running a little bit rich. And, you know, it has to break in, but it doesn't seem to want to rev anyway, so that seems like where it wants to be. Maybe after a day's worth of cutting, it might change its mind, but right now, it's not quite the saw the stock build is, so it's really not fair to do a comparison. Plus, it's 20 degrees, actually it's 15 degrees out, and I only have about an hour or 2 to do this, so I have to kind of scream and get it done. So here goes nothing. Here's that Hudsel saw. Actually, I did a couple things since the last video. One is I put a different spring in there. I did replace those with the springs that came with the Husqvarna. And other than that, it's the same saw. But it lines up a lot better with those different anti-vibe springs. This stuff here, that's hard maple. You can see that this was an old tree and it had been tapped. And you can see when they stopped tapping it, look at this, because that's the edge. All this growth here is the last 20 years or so. But I gotta tell you something, this stuff here is freaking rock hard. Huh. You know, it's what, 15 degrees out maybe? Maybe 20, but I think it's closer to 15. That's as hard as it gets. Yeah, I know, crappy cut. I didn't care. That's gonna be firewood. But I think what we're gonna do now is just show the difference between 70 cc's and 55, and you can look at the timestamps to figure out if there is a difference. That's assuming I have any gas left. We'll see. Here's that Hudzel saw. It's really not that bad. Crappy chain, but I had to drop the rakers a bit. I kind of like those bars. They're a little heavy, but they last pretty long. And like I said before, I did some adjustments before I brought this saw out. I put a different anti-vibe spring there and things like that just to clean it up. So, not a bad saw. As Bob likes to say, it'll put wood on the truck. So let's see what 55 cc's will do on the same log. now it's running a little bit lean. It's what these things do. And this is that one I did in the 455 saw that had an oiling problem. And it's oiling, I can see it. So that works. It's also a semi-chisel chain, although I sharpened this one and dropped the rakers as much as I dare for this saw. That's just hard freaking wood. It needs a full chisel chain, both of them. But there you go, that's a quantitative difference between them. But there's one thing I'll do with this. I'm not going to bother with that, and that's take care of some of these limbs. And the other thing is, this thing doesn't use fuel hardly at all as compared to that saw or anyone like it. These little X-Torques have a place in the world. And you guys wonder where the logs come from for the get-togethers. This is how I do it. And this is typically the time of year. I'm just getting older and slower. But I'm glad to have one of these back. I kind of miss my 455. You know, for what it is, it's not a bad saw. At least to this point in time. We'll see how long it lasts. My impression is it's not the saw that my 365, 372 hybrid is. But I don't know if that's fair because that's hard to get. And that's a semi-chisel chain as compared to a full chisel chain. But what we're going to do is get those saws together with Bob's and do a comparison. Yeah, try this again because I cut my head off last one. I'm going to do a couple of cuts with this saw. This is the Hudzel saw. It's not a bad saw actually. After I take a couple of cuts with this, I'm going to do the same with that 455. Well, so much for that plan. Look at that. Right into a nail. And that's a tap. Well, if that Forester chain sucked before, it's going to suck a whole lot more now. Oh well. I'll tell you what. I'm going to take the little 455 and take a cut up here. You'll still get an idea of what it's like. So, I don't know. Final thought on this day for this particular saw, it's really not that bad at all. Some of that earlier video is going to look a little funny because of the parallax. But that's actually, you know, typical tree. Not a big tree, it's a little tree. But it's hard maple, and I mean rock hard maple. So, it's done for the day. Those chain guards, I don't like them at all, by the way. So, anyway, let me go a little further up the log and see if I can miss a tap for this poor little 455. What a mess. Well, that's it. That should be graphic enough. Both saws have got Forester semi-chisel chain on them. This one I took the rakers down some, and I did the same on that. This one's running just a little bit lean. Something pretty easy to fix. It's just I haven't had it out in the woods to tune on it, but it's not going to cut a whole lot faster even when I give it more fuel. But that should give you a graphic difference between Chinese 70cc saw, homeowner grade 55cc saw. Well, I just want to make a couple of comments on the saws. This was that rough looking little 455. I had done the video with the 455 with an oiling problem. It oils just fine. It's a good running little saw. Runs a little bit lean. You know, I find that that's typical of these saws. And of course it's very cold out, so it exacerbates that situation. But, you know, I should richen it up a little bit and give it another try another day. But I think it cut pretty well for the day. You know, it's a good running little saw. Now, this saw here, this is the Hudzel 372 build, where I started out with the Husqvarna cases and kind of built on that. And most of the saw is Hudzel. Covers, cylinder, piston, main bearings and seals, ignition system, pull start, the muffler, no modification, that's just the way it comes, that little tiny hole. The tank handle, I wasn't pleased with it when I first got it. And when I put the stock Husqvarna anti-vibe springs on it from the old handle that was all broke up. Things worked out much better, really did. Forester Red, it's the Red series. I don't know what they call them, but they're the red bars in the catalog. You know, they're a little heavy for what they are, but they last a long time. For these comparison saws, they're just fine. Now, I've got 3 of them, and they're all going to be used just to sort of even the field between the saws for comparison's sake. Knock down some trees. The other thing I want to point out is the last cut I made with the 372, that was after I'd already gone through a nail. And of course, then I went and hit the tap, and that did a number on that chain. Huh. I don't know if you can see it with the camera, but it pretty much ruined the chain. Let's go down and see what I hit, so you can have an idea what I'm talking about. The reason I'm doing this is because even with that first hit through the nail, it really didn't cut that bad. It wasn't until it got the second hit that it gave up the ghost. Where is that thing? There it is. Don't want to take out my finger. But you see, I cut right through that. See it? Before I got done with this cut, I'd already hit this nail. Already done some damage to that chain, but it kept on going. So I guess I should give a plug to the semi-chisel chain, because I finished the cut, even though it had a little bit of metal intervention here. Now, you can see it didn't have a prayer second time around. It went right into the tap. That chain's wasted. Anyway, little trees, little maples. That's where we are. No, that's where we were. And give you an idea what the snow is like out here. Not bad. There's where we were, on the other side of that valley up in those woods. Can you say saw project? Maybe that's a get-together right there. Take those willows down and block them up and haul them down into the valley and throw them in the swamp. And they'll make a whole bunch of little baby ones. Can't kill those damn trees. We had a windstorm come through here this last summer, which broke this all up. But I see some saw work ahead here, don't you?